Culture by Culture, a multidimensional exploration of Black and Asian pop cultural ties. I'm your host in her renewed anime era, Delia. And today I'm joined by the host of the YouTube channel Anime Relatable and creator, Eli.
Hey, what's going on? I'm so excited to be on this. I have so much excitement that I can't contain it. So I might be fumbling over my words, but we're here.
No, I'm so excited to have you. People, I would hope that my listeners know, but in case y'all don't know, I've been on Eli's channel. We did a live stream now some months back at the time we're recording this, I think. And I'll link it in the show notes because y'all should go watch it. It was a great time. So I was immediately like, okay, I have to have him on. I love his content. He's a good egg, and he's over on the YouTubes. That's not where we really exist over here. On the YouTubes. So of course we're going to link everything in the show notes, and we'll give you time to plug at the end, of course. But for people who don't know you, maybe they're new to this season. Hi, y'all. Tell the folks a little bit about what you do over there on YouTube.
Yeah. Cool. So my name is Elijah. I have a YouTube channel called Anime Relatable. And the whole goal for me with Anime Relatable is to have conversations and dive into topics about our favorite anime or about our favorite shows that I think, at least in my opinion, are relatable to real life. Because I think art sometimes can reflect real life and reality. And so my goal over there is just to take our favorite shows, characters, and bring them to life and have the conversations that normally I think are had on the surface, but kind of dive more deeper into it. And Anime Relatable is it's a Christian YouTube channel. So one of the main goals for me is be able to see okay, how does this art, this anime reflect life, but also, how can I see Jesus in the animes that we love and hold dear to our hearts and stuff. So
yeah, no, it's very cool. I really love the work you do. You interview some cool people over there, which sounds like a humble brag. That's not what I was trying to say. I was just saying your other content also as well.
You're the coolest person that I had on. So I'm just saying.
Okay. Well, I think you have to say that if you then go on one of your guest podcasts. So. Okay, well, let's just get into it because I'm super excited to talk. I already told him before we started recording, I'm going to try my best to keep it to time, but I have so many questions. It's going to be a good convo. So strap in, everybody. I want to start though, let's start at the very beginning. In the beginning, just kidding. No Bible jokes. I'll refrain. I want to know a bit about your anime origin story. How did you come to the anime space? Why anime?
Yeah. So my origin story is probably not that unique, right? So I started watching anime through the infamous network of Toonami. And so, I think everyone, mostly that was their first introduction to anime. So, Saturday, being 8, 9, 10 years old, you see these really cool cartoons on Cartoon Network because it just came on right after Cartoon Network. And so how I got introduced to the anime world is through that, because watching Dragon Ball Z, Naruto, before I even knew what the form of anime was, it was oh, this is cool. You get to see people punch each other in the face. So it's that's a fun thing to watch. And as I grew, I got older, I still was familiar with Toonami, wasn't really delved into the world of anime until I got to college. And when about my junior year of college, I was a depressed boy and trying to figure out life. And so, between, going to, track practice and, between classes, trying to survive on the college campus in the dorm room, I found anime, or I remembered anime. I was oh, let me watch these, shows that I used to, that I relatively am around. But then, my junior year, the whole year in my room watching anime, Full Metal Alchemist, DBZ, Naruto, Hunter x Hunter. So that's a little bit of my origin story with anime. And then ever since then, I've met some cool anime friends. I got a friend that's a manga artist, and I've been running with it ever since.
That's so awesome. Yeah, I think anime has this really awesome ability to meet people where they're at. I think maybe not just anime, but there's certain types of media, I think, that are kind of comfort media. They really have a way of just being there at the time you need them in a way that, just a casual, I don't know. TV show. I don't watch a lot of like Western TV to be honest, but like, yeah, anime has that. I think that's like a common story. Like just going back to those comfort interests, if you will. I wonder what your friends and family thought of your anime interest. Like, did it like become a full blown obsession that it was visible, or was it like low key for a while? Like, how did that progress?
Yeah. So, I mean, is it okay if I get vulnerable, I guess?
Yeah.
Cool.
No, absolutely. Please do.
Yeah. So, my family, my mom at least, she, very engaged in my life, but not really that sort of like, oh, these are your hobbies, these are your interests and stuff. So, and plus, like, I was away at college, so like, there was really no way for her to know that I was watching anime, and so, really, I don't think they had really any concerns really because they didn't know that I was like, getting into anime the way I was. And into some cases, I wasn't like always in my dorm room by myself, like watching anime. There were things I was doing, like I wasn't like completely secluded. But my fam, they're very much hands off a little bit. My little brother, he watches anime. I think he's now in that phase where he's like secluding himself and watching anime, which is like, this is great, but go outside. So
touch some grass. Yeah.
So yeah, that's a little bit like kind of where my fam stood with that. I mean, my fam, they know only my little brother, he really knows like kind of like the anime. My mom is just like, she's like, oh, cartoons, cool, that's it.
So at least they weren't, because a lot of, I think in conversations I've had, like it's pretty common in conversations on the podcast, but also like with friends IRL, like a lot of families, especially around like nerd stuff, they're like, ooh, what is that nerd stuff? So at least it wasn't that. I know I'm on the opposite end of that spectrum where my dad is the one that got me into anime. So like there's a full spectrum.
Yeah. I keep referring. I said this in the last podcast, but your dad was cool when I listened to the podcast. When I think it was the very first one, I was like, wow, like I wish my dad was in the anime.
Yeah, no, my dad's a huge nerd. We're currently, I'm like currently absolutely obsessed with Jujutsu Kaisen. Like I cannot stress how obsessed I am with it. And my dad is also obsessed with it. So like every week we're like, hey, you seen that episode? Like we're talking about Jujutsu Kaisen, which I have not seen this week's episode. He's already been like, you need to hurry up and watch Jujutsu Kaisen.
That's such great bonding. Like when I have children, they're going to be watching anime. I'm like, hey, let's bond over, whatever future anime that's out right now.
Absolutely. It's so fun. It's so fun to have like just this piece of media that like you can share interest over. And it's just like, especially if like, I think often in like, this is obviously like very generalized. It's going to differ from family to family, but like it can be pretty common for men, but Black men especially, it can be difficult for them to connect. And I feel like finding media that you can like enjoy alongside your kids, whether that's anime or not, like I think is super helpful to like build that bond and stuff. Like, yeah, me and my dad being nerdy together. And it's not just anime either, like video games. We both love Lord of the Rings. Like we just be nerding out together.
That's awesome.
Yeah, for sure. So you said, what was your first anime?
Man, my very, very first anime, if we're talking like when I was like really young, it would be considered like Dragon Ball Z for sure. I think that's at some point, if you're not even if you're not into anime like that, that's your very first like, hey, about Dragon Ball Z. But I would say the very first anime, like when I was like, I guess conscious of like of my being, I think was Hunter x Hunter.
Okay.
That was like one of the anime that I binge watched like for the very first time, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. Like I did not know like there was this media form out here that would consume my time like this. So
consume your time at will. Yeah, I've tried watching Hunter x Hunter and I couldn't get into it personally, but I know people love it. So I keep trying to like I just chip at some episodes, chip away at it. But mine was Inuyasha, which I know is also not for everyone. Like you, technically my first anime was definitely Dragon Ball Z or Dragon Ball, whatever my dad was watching the first time I ever saw it. But like my first, like, I think I personally like anime and I'm going to watch this on my own time. Was Inuyasha. That was the one for me. And I still go back to it when I'm like, I'm having dinner. What do I want to watch? Okay, I'll put an episode of Inuyasha on.
It's great. It's crazy because I know Inuyasha is one of a fan favorite for people, and my wife she loves Inuyasha. And she often goes back to it. We were probably a few months ago, we were trying to watch it together. I've never gone back since because I think it's just gonna take time to kind of get into Inuyasha. I know it's kind of long, but I struggle because I don't know if I have just a short attention span now, or it's just there's just some anime that I can't go more than 100 episodes. I don't even know. Does Inuyasha have more than 100 episodes?
Yeah, I'm pretty. Actually, you want to know something wild? I did finish the anime, but I read the manga more. Back in the day, I used to be more of a manga reader than I was an anime watcher, which is kind of. I did both, but I definitely read the manga more. So I know for sure there's way more than that in the manga. But yeah, I think pretty sure it's over 100 because there's 8 seasons, and wow. I can't remember how many each season, but yeah.
I get intimidated by the multiple seasons for shows now. I never used to be that way. But there's when you're older, you just have such limited time, and it's what am I going to consume my time to? And especially because there's so many anime out in the world now. It's this is a good anime. Jujutsu Kaisen is on right now, but One Piece is starting to get into this phase of going Super Saiyan. It's yo, I want to get there, and it's there's just so much that you want to be able to watch, but such little time. But Inuyasha, eventually I'll get there.
Yeah, that's what I tell everybody about the different things that they recommend, especially on the podcast. I'm I'll get to it eventually. But yeah, there's only so much time in your day. And then a lot of people have interests outside of anime. I have we focus on this podcast on Asian pop culture, but I nerd out about other stuff too. I got to get it all in. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so I was curious what resonated with you about Hunter x Hunter that really pulls you all the way in.
Yeah, I think so. This is also where I get a little bit personal too. So with the main character Gon, he he grew up without his dad in a way, right? And so for me watching that show, it resonated with me in that way because so my dad passed when I was around 15, right? And so for kind of him being able to go throughout life and eventually he meets his dad later in the last season of the anime, but I think him going through life, him trying to figure it out on his own, he wants to be a hunter like his dad. And so for me I was oh wow, this hits because he's really just trying to figure out life without having a male dad presence in his life right now. And I think for me, him going through all the trials, finding friends that want to journey with him working hard to become the best hunter he possibly can be, was something that I was wow, this is cool to see. And I think that was really my first introduction to seeing all these shonen characters for some reason all not having a dad, and just why do y'all not have dads? What's going on here? But
it's the reverse Disney where all the princesses or whatever don't have parents, kind of.
yeah, literally. And and I think seeing that and then seeing how hard they were working and realizing that they had that along the way of their journey, they were able to gain friends that really loved them and cared for them and had their back and through every situation was something that I really longed for. Because, when I was, in college as a junior, I was a loner in a way, right? Even though I liked anime and there was anime clubs on campus, there were people that hung out in the little lounge in the campus center that were just watching anime and talking about anime and doing nerd things. But I never felt I could go up to them and form a friendship with them because I don't know. I think at that point I was oh, I maybe feel like a fraud because I'm just now getting into anime, and these people have been into anime for so long. And so that really kept me back from really trying to experience community and running with people. But luckily, I had friends, that were outside of that community that felt they were my Killua to my Gon, right? I have one of my best friends that I was just talking to before then. He is that person that has really done life with me. And seeing that in Hunter x Hunter was something that I really enjoyed, especially this the idea of friendship, which is kind of shown in every shonen anime for some reason. But that was something that I really loved, that Killua, his gang, really stuck by him through everything. So
how has it been having come to the fandom later? Because I think we talked about it on the live stream I did with you a little bit, how you came to it later and I came to it earlier as relative, obviously. But what's it being an adult, a legal adult, coming to anime at that stage rather than, I mean, I guess you don't know what it's like rather than younger, but how is it like coming to anime as an adult and entering that fandom space?
Oh, how much time do we have?
Oh boy.
Just kidding. So I find it's really fun. Like, I think there are a lot of things to enjoy about anime fandom now, especially depending on what type of fandom that you're a part of. But also, like, you know, just the community at large. I think anime in general is just like, it's a connecting piece for everyone of different backgrounds, of different cultures and stuff. And I think being able to celebrate that aspect, that you have so many different people being able to come together over this one form of entertainment, it's really been fun. Because, like, you know, I live here in New York City, and so I could, you know, be wearing like a one piece shirt, and this actually happened. Like, I was wearing a one piece shirt, and I was on the train, and the guy was like, "Oh, you watch One Piece?" I'm like, "Yeah," and he just walked up the train. I'm just like, "Oh, okay." There's this like connection that I'm going to have with strangers that some people won't be able to understand, but we understand it, like, you know, right away. So I think that's been the fun thing, where I'm just able to connect with anyone that watches any form of anime, right? And even if it's like not an anime that I like, you know, I've never watched or anything, it's like, oh, bet we can bond over this thing that we both enjoy. Along with that, and I think, and you know, even just being a content creator in the anime space, I think it's been great, but you also see the downsides of fandom, which I think that's with anything. There's just gonna be negative things with fandom, right? And as I've, you know, grown older, and like I've kind of realized, like, oh, some of the things that I thought were cool about, you know, anime, whether that's like, oh, I'm seeing like these half naked women on, you know, on this TV, that's cool. Or I'm seeing guys just like, you know, get these crazy power ups, but they didn't work for them, or any. And I think that's really cool. But now I'm looking at it like, dang, like there's some things we need to talk about with this, which I think is the reason why Anime Relatable was created. Because I'm just like, okay, bet these things are good to enjoy, but like, let's talk about like the deeper issue here that most people might not be thinking about. And you know, there's other things like I don't want to get myself in trouble, but there's definitely like sort of the toxic sort of like, you know, people debate like all the time over like, hey, which anime is better? Which character is more OP? What characters that like have no relation to each other whatsoever can beat the other in combat? And it's just like, that's cool, but like, why we don't have to send death threats to each other over these things, right? And I think, you know, one of the things that I've been like critical of, which, you know, some people would disagree with it, some people not, sort of the over-sexualization like in anime sometimes. I think being a older male, I'm like, and I'm realizing like, okay, bet like, you know, this is the thing, and I understand it's the thing, but like, why is it a thing? And like, kind of talking against that or critiquing it, you sort of get hit with the, it's for, you know, young boys, right? Or it's for, you know, why do you have a problem with it? Like, it's just like, you know, everyone has their interest. I'm just like, cool, like, and everyone has a right to their interest, but like, how is it impacting you? Is it impacting you in a good way or a negative way? Because in the things that we consume, they're always going to develop us or, you know, form us in some type of way. And so if you're consuming like these like over sexualized harem anime, it's like, cool, that's great. But like, how is it forming you in your everyday life? Are you sitting inside just watching it all the time and not interacting with the outside world? Is it impacting how you actually interact with women? Like, you know, I've heard of stories of women and people going to cosplay, like, you know, in conventions, and like they've been attacked by these people, or they've been like, you know, abused by these people. And I'm just like, that's not okay, right? And I think I think it's kind of one of the reasons why I wanted to make anime relatable. So I'm just like, bet like, let's relate this like these shows that we watch, but like, let's talk about the deeper issue in which I think is a, you know, a heart issue at the end of the day. So
absolutely. Like, there's a reason why you go to conventions. If listeners, you've ever been to one, if you haven't, they have like posters and sayings, cosplay is not consent, because it is so prolific for especially femme cosplayers, or just any cosplayer. Like, it doesn't even, like, if they're even cosplaying a sexualized character, but then they themselves, you know, may not want that attention, people just assume like that, oh, well, you're dressed like that, so I can do what I want. Like, you're this personification of this character, and it's such a problem. And, you know, I totally agree that, to me, it's about, we all have responsibility as consumers of media, of art as well, to think to ourselves why, question ourselves and manage ourselves, because like something that one person may be able to watch and feel okay with is not going to be something that another person is going to be able to watch. And you have to like figure out what your own boundaries are and like what is healthy for you. And I think it's kind of not talked a lot in our society about, you know, knowing that you might even have boundaries that you don't know of, if you know what I mean. Like, for instance, like I just personally do not like watching scary stuff. Like truly scary horror stuff is not for me. Like partly because it's scary, but like I'm like, I don't want that negativity in my head. I don't want that living there, because like even though I'm not one to get nightmares and stuff, like I don't know how that's going to creep up. Is it going to make my anxiety worse? Like you have to know these things about yourself and like figure out what your limits are. And like to do that, I think we need content creators like yourself, or who teach people to just think critically. Like we don't have to agree, but like think critically about the media you're consuming.
Yeah.
I was wondering what the like initial catalyst for making anime relatable and how you chose to make it a YouTube channel and all of that.
Yeah. So way before Anime Relatable, I do this podcast called Sinners Only Podcast with some of my college friends. And, you know, through doing that podcast, I really like sort of like learn how to, you know, record videos or edit videos and, you know, how to actually talk about a topic and stay on topic. And I think from that, I kind of got inspired, like, okay, like this is great. And I love doing this with my friends, but like, how do I like create something that I also love that I can't necessarily talk about in the same medium of like, you know, of this podcast? And so I, you know, and also it's like, okay, how do I, you know, whatever I do, I want to be able to connect it with my faith in some way, shape or form. Right. And for me, in the YouTube space, I don't know how much you are in the YouTube space, but there's a bunch of Christian YouTubers that like sort of do the same thing over and over again. It's like, okay, reacting to world events. Let's talk about the world events. Let's talk about how, you know, Jesus talks about these world events. And it's like, that's great. That's cool. And I think there's a need for that. But like, I don't want to be just a drop in the bucket full of Christian YouTubers that talk about the same thing. And so how, you know, a year ago, I sort of just thought like, okay, like what can I do in order to, you know, talk about what I love, but also make impact in some type of area. And, you know, watching anime, I was like, oh, I love anime. I know there's anime YouTubers. I know there's people that talk about this stuff in like in a critical way. How about I just make a anime YouTube channel? And sort of that kind of niching down a little further. It's like, okay, but how do I branch myself away from the regular, you know, the average anime YouTuber? Because there's big ones out there. How do I differentiate myself from those people? Okay, let me be a Christian anime YouTuber. I don't think there's many of them. I don't think there's many of us. I know probably like 2 other anime YouTubers. But for me, I'm like, okay, like this is cool. I love anime, but I also love Jesus. Let me mix them both together. And Anime Relatable sort of formed because it's like, okay, like I relate to the anime when I watch them in general. I think Jesus has everything to say about the mediums of art and, you know, music, whatever it is in the world. I think he has something to say about it. Let me try to like bridge the gap. And that's sort of how Anime Relatable came to play.
As a content creator, obviously, we deal with criticism. People will disagree. Like that's just par for the course. It is what it is. But specifically, I've, you know, as somebody who's religious myself, I've know that like just having existed and grown up in the church, like I know how people in the church can often interact. So I wonder, like even having a Christian anime YouTube channel, are there Christians that come out of the woodwork to tell you like, well, you shouldn't be watching anime at all, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah. So my very first, not my very first, but there's a few videos that I have on YouTube and also on TikTok. That's probably my most viewed TikTok ever. That kind of talks about like there's a lot of Christians that like don't necessarily want to watch anime because they believe it's demonic or because you know because of the sexual themes in it. They don't want to be able to. They don't want to fall astray or they don't want to accidentally sin or whatever because they see like a big-breasted woman on the screen that's like a hero or something. And when there was a content creator on YouTube that like I reacted to, I was like, and he was talking about, hey, like this is anime, this is how you say it. This is why you shouldn't watch it. This is why you should watch it. And if you're going to watch it, there's these shows that you should probably watch, which were like for the average anime viewer, for anyone that gets introduced to anime, they're not going to find, I don't think, in my personal opinion, this might be different. They're not going to automatically go to the slice of life anime right away.
Right.
There's going to be, they might get introduced, especially if they're like, 18 to 25-year-old guys, like they're going to be watching the Demon Slayers. They're going to be watching the DBZ, the Naruto, the Boruto, Hunter x Hunter. Like they're going to be watching all these action-filled animes with the cool fight scenes, because that's kind of what, in the mainstream, I think anyway, is how anime is introduced to the world, right? Everyone knows who Goku is, even if they haven't watched a thing of Dragon Ball Z. And so the kind of my critique for that was like, hey, if you're going to watch an anime, let it be that like you are okay with it being like with your convictions and stuff, right? If like you're okay with like, seeing, things that aren't necessarily shown in Western media. If you're okay with, the hero being able to defeat a demon, if you're okay with, seeing like a human kid be, have powers from a demon, but you're able to like kind of separate it in his human side and show how like he can be a hero and save people and care for people and love people, then like you are okay with watching it, right? Because I think watching these things isn't inherently sinful. It's what we do with them that makes it's sinful, I guess. And so I replied to that, and a lot of Christians were just like, you shouldn't be watching it at all. Like it's demonic, regardless of however you want to talk about it. I was talking. I made a video about Demon Slayer, and I was like, hey, this whole anime is about people fighting against demons. How is this demonic? But people were just like, I think sometimes, and everyone has their own convictions, but sometimes people are so sensitive to like demons or, different sort of things that they're just like, no, you can't watch it all because it's going to make you stumble. But like, if you're strong enough in your convictions to like, not be stumbled by those things, I think they can bring great value to you as a person, but also to the broader world. And so there are a few people like that. I'm going to make a video about that video in the comments that I've gotten, but that's for another time.
Okay. Yeah, I can only imagine because the thing about Christian creator spaces that I've seen, because I do watch like a lot of YouTube, and I've followed not even just Christian. I think this is probably true. I mean, I'm not from those cultures or anything, but I have like experienced watching like creators of other faith, and something about being in a like, we all agree to these set beliefs, but now suddenly it's like, so we're gonna go police everybody's beliefs and tell you exactly how to do it. And it's just, I don't know, the internet, man. Like, there's no niche without its quirks, but man,
yeah, and honestly,
and anime. Go ahead.
No. And my gripe with like, speaking to the Christian content creator YouTube side is that like, I feel like with a lot of topics that people will speak on, like they aren't necessarily that qualified to speak on them, but because like, as Christians, like people assume that, hey, like we're supposed to call out things that are wrong, right? We're supposed to, lead people in the right way and point them to Jesus. And I think we can do that, but it doesn't have to be in a way which you're like, one, policing everyone, or two, judging someone, or calling them out their name or whatever. Cause like, that's like kind of my thing with like, anytime I see that, I'm just like, this is a bad look, especially if there's like a Christian content creator that like comes like anime in a way and they just generalize it. I'm just like, you need to kind of, let's have a conversation. Cause I don't think that like you generalizing this like sort of like entertainment or whatever is going to help you reach people in this audience anyway. Right. Because it only makes like, it only makes, Christian YouTubers or Christians in general, it makes the anime community or any type of community give them a bad perception of what Christianity, Jesus, and what they're really like, basically. Which is my own gripes with that, with my community, I guess.
Well, then on top of it, it's the anime community too, which is also famously, we talked about this a little bit on your live stream, of how like a lot of anime fandom, like this is true of nerd fandoms in general, but especially in anime, at least for women, but I do think it happens across the board, of like constantly having to prove that you're like fan enough almost. Like, do you know enough? Like, well, how long have you been watching anime? Like all these things. And so I wonder if that has also affected you as a creator, if you've had people commenting like, oh, well, you don't really know because you haven't watched, 10,000 episodes of One Piece or whatever the case may be.
Yeah. So it hasn't happened yet. As long as I'm in this space, I think it might happen at some point. If I definitely speak on the anime that like I haven't watched fully, right? There's one that I plan on doing a video about. If you know the anime Mushoku Tensei, it's an isekai anime, and like immediately I'm just like, I disagree with this. Like it's kind of like sometimes I think isekai have some like things that like a lot of people kind of are concerned about, and for me, I'm like, I want to talk about these things, but I know I'm like walking a thin line if I don't watch the full thing. It's like 2 seasons, but I'm like, I already have some gripes with it and I just want to comment on it. But I already know that if I do, there are going to be some people that's like, hey, you haven't watched the full thing yet, so you can't like judge, the characters or the development. I'm just like, maybe, but so not yet, but I'm expecting it sometime soon.
Yeah, the anime fandom, it's one that has its, again, every niche has its quirks, but yeah, the anime fandom can be very it very much likes to protect itself, and I wonder, as like a Black anime fan or content creator, if that's affected you at all, because I know I've talked with other guests, obviously that's part of this podcast, talked to other guests about their experience as Black people in fandom, and like we all have different stories, but we all have similar stories of like going into fandom spaces and they're like very white, which is always so strange because, this is a foreign media, like it's Asian media. It's not even white media, but in America, especially, I feel like fandom spaces are very much dominated by white voices, and that's slowly changing because we've seen obviously very big like pop culture figures. You have like Megan Thee Stallion, you have Michael B. Jordan, like they talk about anime, they love anime or whatever, and so it's becoming cool, it's becoming mainstream. But I wonder if still in this day and age, people, especially since you're newer to fandom, if you've experienced anything being a Black fan in the space.
Yeah, I definitely have. So far, not necessarily on the personal side, but definitely on the content creator side, where I remember a few months back, and I think I was talking to you about this, and where I was kind of like trying to open a can of worms of talking about like, hey, like why aren't there as many, Black characters in anime? And if there are Black characters, why are they perceived in a way that's like not favorable to, the Black audience, right? And from that, a lot of people were just like, hey, why do you need to insert yourself in every single thing, right? Or it's not, it's Japan, like why are you trying to like, insert yourself in this like in this culture that's like more or less homogeneous? I'm just like, I mean, I've seen they're not a lot, but I've seen some Black people in Japan, right? Like, and even if they're half Japanese, I'm like, there's people out there that look like these people, and so like, for me to call it out, like definitely a lot of people were just like, hey, you shouldn't do this. It's like there was one creator on TikTok that I was having a conversation with someone from a clip from a podcast that I put up on there, and they were just like, hey, he's just like putting in like some CRT nonsense, like this is just for his podcast. I'm just like, where is this conversation? Where is this even coming from, right? And so I think I've experienced it more or less in the comments, and I'm reading them, and sort of and recently, with the new One Piece live action that just came out, one of the best live actions that will probably ever exist, because some of them just they aren't that great, right? But with the like, I ended up doing a video about like, Nami's sister, like, and her being casted as a Black woman, and like I'm reading through the comments and seeing like people being like, hey, she has full body hockey right now, like, oh snap, that's so cool, like, or I'm just like, why do you have to compare like her skin color to like this like dark Black ornament armor hockey that like One Piece characters have not until later into the show? Like, why are we making this as a joke? And some people are just like, oh, I thought it was funny, or like, oh, I'm a Black person, I thought it was hilarious. I'm just like, but like, just because you thought it was hilarious doesn't mean that everyone else thought it was hilarious. And yeah, so I think I've experienced those things, not directly necessarily. I definitely, I'm sure like going forward there would be, more things that I talk about that kind of like open that can of worms, and I'm expecting them, to comment the comments a little bit more. But, I and it's crazy. It is more so from the Western part of the world,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's like, I think it's definitely this desire to gatekeep a culture that's not theirs, and to sort of just make it in this sort of this purist type of way.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just like, if Japan isn't doing that, why are we, right? Like, if like, I think if like, if I could see a Japanese man on YouTube wearing locks, I think it's okay to, have a black character in a shonen anime, right? And that shouldn't be like, looked down upon, I guess. So I haven't experienced as much as other people, but you'll never know.
Yeah, I keep hoping, like, we have made a lot of progress in fandom as far as like creating spaces for Black people, partly because like there's creators like you and myself who like are like, I'm just gonna make space and have these conversations, but also like, I think we're progressing forward, but it is hard to still see comments like that and hear things like that, because again, it's so wild, because this is a cultural exchange. To me, I don't know how you have cultural exchange while being so close-minded. Like, to me, I'm like, it's like oil and water. Those things shouldn't go together. And yet, especially within the anime fandom that I've seen growing up in anime fandom, like, that is the case. And it's frustrating, but we just keep doing the good work. We're going to talk about what we're going to talk about. Yeah. And, it's going to be what it's going to be. And as far as like representation from like Black folks, like you said, there are Black people in Japan, and like Japan may have its own issues with like, how it treats its different ethnic groups, because there are like multiple ethnic groups within Japan. But like, that's for them to decide to talk about. All I'm saying is like, there are Black people in Japan, period. And even if there aren't, anime has tons of Black fans. And like you said, you have a friend who's a manga artist. I mean, I don't know if they're Black. I just assumed. Maybe that was bad on my part.
Black.
Like, okay. I just like assumed. But like, there are a lot of Black manga artists and like people coming up that are doing the work. And you see animes now like Afro-Samurai, like there is this connection here. And so it's like, yeah, I don't know how you engage with this media and not see that, and not see that from the culture side too, like seeing that there are Black people, honestly, all over the world, but especially like in these places where we're asking for representation. As far as representation goes, like if in a utopia, like let's say over the next few years, like a bunch of Black artists come up and like they move to Japan and they're like working with studios and they're going to make an anime, what would you like to see? Like, what is your like a dream Black anime or Black anime character?
Oh, that's a very good question. I think so. This might be, I don't think it'd be controversial. So, the Squad RDC World One, they are recently, or they are working on an anime right now, right? And they also have the manga out and stuff. And I think a lot of what at least I've seen like from clips and previews of it is that there's just like a sort of like resonation like with the Black community, as far as like not just like, because I think automatically when people assume like, resonating with the Black community, it has to be like a sort of a hood culture type thing. I don't think necessarily doing that, right? But I think like they have the hair is on point, the style is on point, and I think like I would just like to see like my dream anime is that like cool, we can have the crazy power ups and stuff. I think that would be amazing. But I just I think having them be like regular, like in a way, right? Like there's obviously the supernatural forces and things that are happening, right? But I think I would love an anime that is just showing like the everyday life of a Black person, right? And I think there's Black cartoons that are like that, right? I think the Proud Family like is is like that. I think there's a few shows on Hulu and Netflix that kind of start to display that sort of thing with like sort of Black characters and stuff. But so like in an anime type style, like I would love just to see them like this doing life, right? Like I think because I think the superpowers and power-ups are great, but like I think having a sort of like a slice of life type thing, like say like I just got done watching a show called Lovely Complex, and it's like shoujo romance type anime, but I would love to see like sort of like Black, sort of like a Black sort of character be in that space, and it just be like enjoyable. You know what I mean?
Just nice and light, you know?
Yeah, just nice and light. Like you know, you can show all the like the, you know, the shoujo, shonen stereotypes, whatever, but like, hey, like, let me get that, right? Because I think like, you know, in a way, like for, you know, slice of life, what I've started to do now, it sort of relates to them a lot more, because I'm just like, wow, like I didn't know that I would feel so full from watching like these shows that just don't show people getting beat up and punched in the face and power ups, but like actually people going through actual real life problems that are relatable to like the average person. So I would love that. I would love that a lot. I know my wife would love that, but I would love that. Which if she ever listens to this, she would be surprised that I'm saying that. So,
oh, we're getting like exclusive tea. But I hadn't even thought of it being like a slice of life, like in the dream, like, oh, if I could have a black character in anime, what would it be? But that's so true, because I truly believe slice of life anime is like the sleeper hit. Like everybody gets in through the shonen. They may like go off to shoujo. They may watch isekai. But like when you get your first slice of life anime, you remember it, because it probably like hit you right in the feels, and you were like, yo, like it wasn't my first slice of life, but one of my favorite animes of all time is Kids on the Slope. Like I love that. It's such a special anime. Like, so yeah, to have that with like representation, like black representation, and of course like that's what we talk about around here, but like I would like to see like people of all colors and backgrounds like anime. Like I just would love it. Like I think there's a way to do it while it's still, you know, respecting the origins. So anybody listening, make it happen if y'all have the power to make it happen. You are the change you want to see in the world. You
are the change. You can do this. I believe in you. We believe in you.
Yeah, I believe in y'all. Yeah, like just please. And I know we've been talking about it a lot. You know, you made anime relatable to talk about like Christianity and anime. But I'm wondering, like, when you're personally like in your day-to-day life approaching anime, how your blackness and faith affects how you approach it.
That's a good question. I think, okay, so might be a history lesson a little bit in there. So with Christianity, right, I think I'll just separate the two. So with Christianity and like me just being a black man in general, I think there are a lot of things a lot of baggage that can come with it, especially because of the history of just the world that we live in and stuff. And I think that sort of this religion, Christianity, that started in a way to give hope to people that like experience all sorts of things, right? Whether it's bondage or they're trying to work their way to be in a relationship with God, but they feel like they're never enough. And I think Christianity offers those solutions to those problems. But then, you know, over time, things have happened, right? And then we get to like kind of reason why I'm here, right? It's like transatlantic slave trade. A lot of, you know, Christianity in some way has been, you know, used as a justification for why, you know, why slavery happened, or like, or for example, like this is a thing now. I don't know if it still happened, but like there's this thing called the curse of Ham, where it's like, oh, bet like Noah cursed one of his sons, so that's the reason why you get all, you know, black people or African people, and like I think with a lot of those different things, like that's kind of like I carry that with the acknowledgement that I am like, you know, there are a lot of black Christians for sure, but I think in this day and age, for sure, people are looking, especially black people, they're looking at Christianity as like, oh, you're a Christian? That's stupid. Why would you want to be a part of religion of your oppressors? And I think there's some validity to that for sure. But I think when you're actually looking at the nitty gritty of what Christianity actually means, like you find that like, hey, Jesus is meeting you there, and like he offers you what these slave master people, or, you know, people that use Christianity as justification to do really, really bad things. He offers something very, very different. Kind of pivoting to the anime side, I know these people aren't like me, right? I know, like, you know, when people are like when manga artists and, you know, in the shows that we love, like they're not necessarily thinking about me and mine, right? They're thinking about the broader audience that they're thinking about the audience that they're catering to, and the, you know, the culture and the, you know, the context in which they live in, which a lot of it will be Japanese influence for sure. And I think for me, it's like, if I want to consume like, you know, some sort of like Japanese thing that came over here, it's like, I don't know. What am I thinking of? If I want to consume some type of like Japanese influence thing and bring it here, like I have to realize that like, oh, like this isn't necessarily a part of my culture. And like, even if I'm like dealing with the Black community and like some people aren't really familiar with anime, I know that I might get looked at a little differently because I do enjoy these things that aren't necessarily part of the Black culture. And so, when I'm watching anime, I just have to realize like, oh, bet like, even though, I have a whole channel called Anime Relatable, or that like I can resonate with these characters in some way, I still have to realize that these people don't look like me, right? Like more so like, if anything, people that like may have more fair skin than me, or they may be in Japan or whatever, they're probably going to identify with these types of things more because like sometimes they just look like them, right? And I know we're talking about like, anime characters and cartoon characters and stuff and people's drawings, but like I think I still have to grapple with that fact that like, hey, like, I mean, even though it's for the broader audience, I'm sure, but like sometimes there's still that little pit where it's like, dang, like that's not me, right? It's like I don't look like that person. I don't have like the the straight hair that goes over my eyes that looks like Justin Bieber. Like I don't know. That's just it right now. Yeah,
not Justin Bieber. No, I get you. I like having to leave a bit of like yourself at the door. I talked about that like in general, especially when I've talked about watching K-dramas, because like that's not even animated. It's like, oh, you're like inundated with these people who don't look like you with these different beauty standards, etc. And like having to manage that, but also just remember like, okay, this is not almost kind of about me in a way, because like it's weird to say, because like we were just talking about wanting Black representation, but I think you can do both, like hope for more, but also at the same time realize and recognize that you're taking in media from a different culture. And I think there's a responsibility to do that a little bit when there's cultural exchange, just recognizing like this is being made in a context that's separate from me, and that's super fine. And like I can still then bring it into my own context and critique it for whatever like resonates with me, whether it's based on my faith, my political beliefs, whatever the case may be, that like affects where your boundaries are, maybe just your mental health. Because sometimes for me, it's just like, look, I got anxiety. I can't be watching this. But like, whatever the case may be, like it's having that skill, I think, to like do that work and like, know where the exchange is happening, and knowing that. And I think maybe sometimes that's because we talked about like people in your comments, a lot of times, especially people who are Christian or whatever, will be like, oh, we can't watch that at all. Or like, oh, that's demonic. And that's something I think about especially within the context of like anime and stuff. I'm like, but like they're demons, but like within the context of like Japanese, like folklore and like you have to like, if you feel convicted about that, you do what you got to do. But like, I just think it's much more interesting to explore like the cultural differences and understanding why they're there, and then making the decision for yourself. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And similarly, like, being Black, like I do wonder sometimes though, like, I don't know how much into Dragon Ball Z and stuff you how into it you are, but there's the common like headcanon that Piccolo is Black, like. Yeah. Period. He's Black. And I remember there's a video, I think it by Yadoye Travis, is that his last name? I will link it in the show notes. It's a really good video about animes for Black people, and like his theory that like anime creators like did focus on Black people as a potential audience for a long time. It's a really good video. I don't remember it. It was like a couple years ago. I'll find it. My point being that like I do recognize like this is not made with like necessarily Western audience specifically in mind, but at the same time, I don't think that they're courting like white fans. Like white fans seem to think, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So because white fans seem to think that they really are, and I don't know that that's true.
That's another conversation, man.
Yeah, I think that's another conversation. So speaking as a like content creator and speaking about this cultural exchange, like where does the line lie for you when it comes to appropriation versus appreciation as a fan or as a content creator?
Yeah. Oh, okay.
No wrong answers.
Got you. No, like, yeah. I think the line for me for sure is like, if something is being done right, without like the straight like acknowledgement of like the source of what you're doing, right? Because I think sometimes, like, I think there's have been a lot of people that have gotten in trouble with that, where it's like, you know, I don't know, you could have like Kim K do something that like, you know, is like appropriating like Black culture, or you have Ariana Grande, which like she does something that's like. I see that. It's like, and I think if like I like no, and I have no problem with like I have no problem with anyone doing these types of things, but like if you're making it seem like if someone's making it seem like they just came up with it on their own and not necessarily giving acknowledgement to the sources that they have you know, gotten, you know, influence from, or if they gotten ideas from, then I think that's like where like appropriation can be, right? Like can happen, right? Because I think it's like, oh, you're benefiting off of me, but like you're not giving me credit for what you're benefiting off of, right? It's like I think, you know, there's people have different ideas and, you know, conversations about that for sure, but I think an idea of like, you know, anime, right, or manga, like Western manga versus like, you know, in the East, right? It's like I think a lot of people can be upset with like, you know, I'm not necessarily sure if this happens as much with like non-Black creators, but I know from, you know, with Black creators, like they often get like accused of appropriation for like, you know, trying to call their, you know, their manga, right? Why why don't they just call it a comic book? And it's like that, like, I think if someone's making a Western manga, they're not appropriating, they're appreciating because they're giving credit to the sources that inspired them. And so I think yeah, like in the conversation of manga, anime, like especially here in the West, like it's not. I don't think it's appropriation at all, because like oftentimes like a lot of the people that in the West, at least, like that get influenced by, you know, different anime, they say that, right? Unlike, not going to say, I'm not going to accuse anybody of appropriation for sure, but like there are people that like that just don't do it, right? Because it's just like, oh, bet, like I'm just going to make this without like giving credit to the influences that like, you know, make me do what I do or help me do what I do. So I really appreciate like, you know, when Black artists realize that, or like, hey, like this isn't like we didn't make this manga, this art form or whatever, but we're going to get into it. We're going to get into this industry, and we know there's an industry for us because like the broader anime or manga community accepts foreign influences of like manga, and it's like if they're doing this, then we're not appropriating, because they realize like, hey, they're just as a part of the manga anime community as anyone else from Japan or these other places. So I think that's like kind of the line for me, where it's like, hey, give credit. Cool. If you don't give credit, that might be a problem. But, you know.
You can tell the difference between when somebody is just like, oh, I think this looks cool and I'm just going to lift it, versus like they really respect the thing and they enjoy the thing and they want to like pay homage to the thing. And part of that is giving credit where you're taking your influences. And I think that's just a good rule of thumb, regardless, not even just like interculturally. Like if I'm inspired by an anime relatable video and I go off and make a podcast episode based on something that you make a video on, I should say, hey, I was watching Anime Relatable and it made me have these thoughts, so I'm making this podcast episode. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just always good to give credit, because like I think that's how art spreads and grows, and also culture and society and all that jazz.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's like, I think that's also a way just to gain respect from peers that you want to like, you know, in the industry that you want to be a part of, right? And so like, if I'm ever making a video with like, and I get an idea from someone, like there's a few people that I've got inspiration from like different YouTube videos and stuff, and they're also bigger anime creators, and like I'm going to tag them, or I'm going to make sure that they're in my things, because I'm not trying to, you know, appropriate their art, because I think, you know, obviously like I think YouTube has a content thing that if you do that, then like you might just like get in trouble. But it's like I think appreciating that, hey, you helped me form this idea, so now I'm going to include you in this, because I want people also to go to your work that you put out, but also just show that I appreciate what you've done by also adding some further commentary to what you've said. And so yeah, I think that's good. I think it does suck sometimes when like, I mean, obviously like something's like been like kind of copied and no one's and like they're not giving credence to like, you know, what they've got inspiration from, you know, but sometimes this is the way of the world. But we live in a social media age, so they might get called out for it. That's
yeah, they'll be quick with it too. They quick in the comments, like at so and so. Did you see that they took your thing? Mm-hmm. They're quick with it. What are your hopes for the future of cross-cultural fandom?
I think, man, I just want people to. So I might come at this from a few different angles. So
okay.
I think I do want people to appreciate each other's like kind of like cultures and what they, in the art that they are, presenting, or in the fandoms that they, that they take place of. Because I think sometimes, like, I mean, and not speaking for every, Black person or every foreign person that's not Japanese, but to get to your question, I think I do want people to really just see that, like, hey, like, there's these different cultures that are really beautiful, and we can consume them without feeling like we need to gatekeep what we've been exposed to, right? And more or less, like, I don't think this is Japan or the Eastern media gatekeeping, anime or manga or whatever. But I think, like, at least on the Western side, like, be like, hey, like, this is for everyone. I think everyone, being in fandom, they also deserve to have their, opinions be heard, or, to talk about these different issues without feeling like they need to be shut out in the conversation. Because I feel like, especially when it comes to like people crossing cultures, when it comes to anything, it's like you have those gatekeepers that, like, you have those people that are just like, hey, you can't talk about this because you're not doing this, or you're not from here, or whatever. It's like, I don't think that's helps us in any type of way, right? It doesn't help us move forward and like trying to have these conversations and to bring unity. Because I think, people are always talking about unity and being together, but it's like, when we want to have the hard conversations about whatever it is in fandom, like, are we going to accept it? And so I think that, wanting everyone's, opinions and critiques or whatever to be accepted without necessarily like being judged or, being called names or whatever, but to just actually have an honest conversation. Because I think within those honest conversations, a lot of things can be revealed, not only with, about the, medium of art or fandom, but just about our own selves, right? Because I think like our hearts can reveal a lot about us and what we think about certain things if we get them talking for a good while. So I think that's like kind of like my hope for kind of cross-cultural, for people crossing cultures. I want people to enjoy things, right? But I want people to look at also the cultures in a critical lens, right? Because I think that's also very important. Because I think, there are some people in the anime community, and I've noticed this, since starting Anime Relatable, that a lot of people, they like, I don't know if they're necessarily like mindlessly consuming anime, right? Especially if they're from like different cultures, but it's like, if you are consuming something, there's no way that you should be. And there's some anime that's just like, okay, but I'm just gonna watch this because I just want to enjoy it, or I just want to escape or whatever. But it's like, there are some anime that like you just can't watch without having to think critically about what you're watching. For example, I use an example. For AOT, Attack on Titan, there is no way that you cannot, like, especially with the art form being anime and like coming from a Japanese perspective, whatever, it's like, there's no way you can't come into this art form or you can't watch this anime without thinking critically about what you're watching. Because if you do, there's some I'm not saying mistakes, but there's some things that you can take away from it that's not very healthy for, not only for cross-cultural engagement, but also just society going forward. If you, or you as a person as well, and going forward about how you think about these ideas and stuff. And so I think that's where I'm at.
I think that's awesome. I totally agree. I would love people to, I mean, I guess that's kind of like the whole reason I'm here, right? I want people to engage more, not critically. There's nothing wrong with casual fandom, but yeah, no, I guess maybe I do mean critically. You can have the casual fandom and like think deeper when, especially engaging with media from different cultures. I think it's extra important there. So we can be more thoughtful, because I think when you don't do that, you can like critique it in a way. What am I trying to say? If you're approaching media mindlessly and it's coming from a different culture, your critiques can then be problematic or short-sighted because you're not willing to engage with the culture that it comes from. Like, you have to do both, I think so, a little bit. So yeah, I totally agree. I think people are getting more mindful, but yeah, keep pushing forward. Like, I would love for people to keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I think when it comes to critiquing or anime commentary, because I think there's a bunch of anime commentary channels and they just talk about sort of like a bunch of different topics, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in the realm that I guess I'm in, a lot of I would say a lot of anime people can be upset because like if I'm, obviously Christianity is already a controversial religion in general, right? And I think when you take anime, you take, crossing cultures with like sort of like there's Japanese religions that are played into anime as well. There's a bunch of, different things that come into it. And I think like a lot of people can get upset because they're just like, why would you why would you compare Jesus to Goku or whatever? And it's just like, hey, like I obviously don't think Goku is Jesus, but like I can take some parallels from what I'm seeing and like attribute them to the to what I believe, I guess.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's the other thing. Maybe I'll add my own hope is that also realizing that not everything's for you. Like as far as like content creation, like, if y'all don't want to learn about Black and Asian pop cultural connections, it'll hurt my feelings. It's fine though. Like y'all don't gotta be here. It's cool. But I think people often like will just like, I'm gonna just have something to say. I'm like, actually, you could just say nothing and leave. And I don't even mean that in a rude way. Like there's so much to fandom, and I feel like there's honestly a place for everyone in it. You just have to look for it. So go find that. Go find your joy instead of spending time in the rest of it. You know what I mean?
Listen, I don't even know why people would be upset in your comments because like what you're doing is great. Like I think it's an important conversation, right? Like I think like I'm a novice in this game, and I think like listening to you, like I've learned just so much, and I think everyone can benefit from that. And like I'm a Black person myself, so I'm just like, oh, bet there's things that I didn't know, and also Asian cultures. Like I get to experience these things from your point of view and like see like, oh, this is how the Asian culture interacts with Blackness or whatever, or you get to share your experiences and like that also resonate with probably 1,000 other people. So I think like what you do is needed, and if people are upset about it, they can just come to Relatable and like we can have a conversation.
I appreciate you, but yeah, you'd be surprised. Like I said, every niche has its quirks. Like if you're going to be a content creator on the internet, like there's going to be someone, and that's okay. Again, I just encourage people to get in where they fit in and to try and engage more thoughtfully when they can, especially when you're talking about crossing cultures. It's especially important then, I think. With that said, I always save when I first started the podcast, I really thought I was saving like the fun, easy questions for last. Over time, I realized that is not true, but I still think it's fun to leave it for last and stress people out. So what is your favorite anime that you've watched recently?
Oh, okay. Oh, man. I think I mentioned it earlier in the podcast, but my favorite anime that I watched recently is Lovely Complex. So I think it's not that old. It's like I think in the 2000s, 2006, 2007s. My wife used to watch it, and one day we were just scrolling trying to find something to watch, and she turned it on, and I was like, it's like romance anime, and kind of the spoilers, I guess, but it deals with a like high school and there's a really, really tall girl, like probably the tallest girl in her class. And there's a really, really short guy named Otani. And so they sort of like, they're best friends, but like they're also enemies. So they kind of have this relationship where they're called like the comedic duo, where they're just always getting each other, they're giving the class a laugh and stuff. But over time, you realize like, oh, they end up having a bet to see which one will end up getting a date first. Right. And so over time, like the, plot just, it goes and like you realize that, oh, like this short king that like is here, he's had like multiple girlfriends, and you have other girls that like him, but then you have like this really, really tall girl that like she's not bad looking. I mean, I know it's a cartoon, but like I know it, like she's not bad looking, but it's like she's never had a date. She's struggling to get people to date her and stuff. And I think over time they just like end up getting together, which the plot is just like they end up dating and being together, which like that's a spoiler for anyone that wants to go watch it. But I think I consider that probably like one of my favorite like shoujo type anime as of right now, but also one of my favorite anime that I watched in the season, because like for me it's like mad relatable, right? It's like relatable, but it's like mad relatable, and it's like bet like I'm sure there are other people in this world that like have to deal with like, you know, liking someone that's like not their ideal type, or they have to like, you know, they have a short, you know, girlfriend or guy friend or whatever, and it's like, oh, they might have feelings for them. So how do you navigate the dynamics of trying to like, you know, date them while also like with the outside pressure of like, you know, people judging you for like the way your relationship looks, right? Because like I think the standard for people is like, oh, the guy is always taller than the girl and like all these other things, but it's like, oh no, this anime kind of just shows you that it's okay to date someone that's not your ideal preference, and it can work, right? And so that has been my favorite anime I've been watching this season, mainly because it's also very funny. Like there are like so many moments where I just died laughing, and I'm just like, that's just great comedy right there, you know? And so I would say Love the Complex is one of the anime that I loved that's one of my favorite anime that I've been watching.
You sold me on it. Like you talking about, you know, having to navigate, you know, a relationship with the outside pressures and like it going through that. And I just knowing anime and knowing how well it can do stories like that, I'm like, ooh, I'm sold. I'm gonna have to go watch that. I don't know where it's at, if it's Netflix, Hulu, Crunchyroll. I'm gonna find it.
I think it might be on Crunchyroll.
Okay, period. I got Crunchyroll. I'll be out there. For sure. That sounds lovely, actually. I'm very much in that's a lie. I was gonna say I'm in a soft anime mood, except I'm not, because I'm obsessed with Jujutsu Kaisen. Never mind.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you can be both in, right?
Yeah, no, you can do both. I think maybe that's why I'm in the mood for like a nice soft animes, because like that is taking up all of that brain space. With that, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much again for coming on. Was so pleased that you were down to come. Go ahead and tell people where to find you and like plug your stuff. Go ahead. You have the floor.
Cool. You guys can find me at Anime Relatable. I think if you just type in like anime and relatable, it should pop up. At least I hope so. I think I hit that stratosphere when you search in the YouTube search bar. You can find me. So yeah, Anime Relatable. But if you don't find it, Anime Relatable X. I don't know why the X is there. It's just there. But you can find me on YouTube. You can find me on Instagram at Anime Relatable. And that's honestly all the platforms that I have, because social media is a lot.
It sure is. Who you telling? It sure is. Well, again, thank you for coming on, and thank you all so much for listening. I want to know what y'all's favorite anime that you've watched recently is. I'll put a little on Spotify. People don't know this. If you're listening on Spotify, I usually have some sort of question that you can answer, and you can answer it on Spotify, and then I can like pin it and people can see your answers. So like share your anime recs, your favorite anime that you've watched recently. Is it Jujutsu Kaisen? Same, bestie, same. With that, if you aren't on Spotify, don't worry. You can let me know on socials. I'm at Culture X Podcast on Instagram for sure. Twitter stays questionable. Who knows? So we'll catch y'all later. Until next time, keep it chill and keep it nerdy.